Welcome to my May 2023 bank switching and current account offers and news update. Lots to get through today, lots of smaller things, but hopefully something that's going to be useful to help you with your money. And let's start off with bank switching. Now, since my last update a month ago, there's only been one new offer. That is the HSBC £200 switching deal. And there was a separate video that I produced a couple of weeks ago. So if you want to find out more information about that one, do watch that video. I'll link to it up here as well, or just search HSBC switch deal and it will pop up. Important thing to remember there is if you go via Top Cashback or Quidco, you can get a little bit extra on top, maybe up to around 40 quid on top. So it's worth following that route. In terms of other switching deals, the ones that were around a month ago are still around now as well. So there is the First Direct £175. Again, remember you can get extra cash by going via Quidco. And there's also the NatWest, RBS and Ulster Bank £200 deal. Now, as I told you last month, it did appear, and in fact it does work, for you to get more than one of those offers. And many of you in the Facebook group have shared that you've got not just one, not just two, but you've got all three. However, I'm starting to see a few murmurings around in the community and elsewhere that maybe these switching offers, the cash has been a bit slower to come. Now, that could just be because we've got bank holidays, other things going on. It could be that they're maybe sort of cracking down on it. I don't know. If I have any more information, obviously I will update you over on the blog and in the Facebook group and those other areas, or I'll tell you about it next month. But if you can't wait till then, do check what people are saying over at becleverwithyourcash.com/community. That's how you can join the Facebook group. Potentially see if you can still get more than £200 from those banks. Now, while we're talking about bank switching, I want to very quickly share with you some figures from the industry body that looks at how many people are switching in and out of each individual bank. Now, these figures are 3 months in arrears. The latest figures are for the quarter that ended October, November and December of 2022. But Which magazine have come through and they've compiled all those different quarters for 2022 together. So we get a big picture look at where people are going and where they're leaving from. And let me get this table up here from Which, and this shows you the net gain. So this is how many people have switched to that bank minus how many people have switched away. And there's some interesting things we can take away from this. Nothing necessarily kind of glaringly new, but it's still worth looking at and reminding us what's going on here and hopefully give an indication of what will happen in the future when it comes to switches. So the biggest winner here was Nationwide, 133,290 net gain from switches. Absolutely dwarfs into comparison all the others. In fact, it's probably more combined than all the other banks with a net gain. Below that, you also got HSBC, 35,000 roughly. Starling, not far behind that with 33,000 net gain. NatWest, 17,000. Monzo, 12,000. And Triodos, 1,200. Actually, Lloyds in there as well, just under 3,000. They are the only banks that more people switch to than left. The only ones who have got more customers because of switching. And there are two things we can take from that, I would say. One is that bank switching for cash is the biggest driver. Nationwide had that offer last year. That would be, no doubt, I'm sure, a big driver behind that. HSBC, again, not as often as they used to, but they had the switching deals. NatWest as well. But interestingly, the other reasons and why people are switching bank, if it's not for cash, it's for a better banking experience. So Starling and Monzo, spoken about them a lot here on the channel. They do have a better banking experience. Although I'm not such a big fan of Monzo now as I used to be years ago, I do really like the Starling experience. And Triodos, people switching there, again, much smaller numbers, but they're going for a more ethical approach. So they're doing that because they want their bank to be doing some kind of good. But the fact that the larger number of switches, and again, we can look at the biggest gains. So this isn't about losing customers, it's about gaining customers. The biggest ones all out were Nationwide, HSBC, NatWest, Santander, Lloyds and Halifax. They're the ones that had more than sort of 35,000 gains in the year. In fact, all of those were more than 55,000. All of those offered switching deals. So I would say from this, we will continue to see switching deals. It's obviously what makes people change bank. The flip side is, does it make them stay? And we obviously don't know how often a person's been at a bank when we see these figures. We don't know how often that they have they switched and gone away or whatever. But the ones that lose the most customers are the ones which people have been to for a long time. HSBC, Santander and Halifax all lost more than 100,000 customers via switches in 2022. And I think Barclays, because it didn't offer any kind of new switching incentives for joining them, they actually had the largest net loss of 69,000, then followed by TSB with 46,000. So obviously They would have got accounts other ways. You can open up an account just individually if you want to. You don't have to switch. But I think this is a good indication of the reasons to switch and why people will continue to do it and why I think the banks will continue to run offers. Now, a question that often pops up, and it's worth sharing this with you now as well, is how do you know when you last switched? Often these accounts, the terms and offers, conditions of the offers, they will say you can't have had an account since X and Y, or you can't have had the money since this date if you've already had a switching deal in the past. And if you haven't kept track of it yourself, which I recommend you do, just write it down every time you switch, the date that the switch completed. You can obviously, it's harder to find out, but I would say go to your credit report. And in your credit report, you will be able to see when you opened and closed an account. And if you know which account you switched out of into it, then that will tell you when the switch ended, the old account. And you might not remember if you've done this a lot, but it's still worth looking at that. And also when you open an account, that date will be in there again to help you find out if you are eligible for these offers. Another quick question that you guys have asked me recently, or some people have been surprised about, again, they've shared this in the Facebook group, is they've been shocked that they've applied for a current account. And even though they haven't applied for or accepted an overdraft, they've been hard searched on their credit report. Well, that shouldn't be a surprise to you. I've said this many times before. Pretty much every time you open up a new current account, whether you get an overdraft or not, there will be a hard search on your credit file. So you need to be prepared for that and you need to be aware of that if you're going to do this. Whether it's opening up an additional account or whether it's for switching, whatever you want to do, there will be a hard search. Now, the exceptions here are Monzo and Starling, unless you do opt for their overdraft, but that would be a soft search without an overdraft. And also Chase and Crew, that will not be a hard search on those accounts there. So they're useful ones to go for if you're worried about your credit report and the impact on your credit report of a hard search. Although bear in mind, obviously Chase and Crew you cannot use for current account switches. Similarly, some banks may not do a hard search if you're applying for an additional account. So you're already a customer and get an additional account, but some will. So again, there's no guarantee that's not going to happen if you apply for those. What else to tell you about? What other news to share with you? Here's a good one. If you are a Barclays customer, you can now use your debit card on Google Pay. Previously, you had to have a workaround. You basically needed to get a Curve card, add your Barclays card to Curve, and add your Curve card to your Google Pay. But since the start of last month, start of April, you've been able to do it directly. So that is great. Still don't know whether Barclays card will be joining them. I'm sure they will at some point. If they've done it for the debit card, they'll do it for the credit card. But good news if you have a Barclays account. Bad news if you have a Barclays account is even more of their branches are closing. It seems that every couple of weeks they announce sort of 10 to 15 different closures. Well, in April, we had 2 lots of these announcements. So in total this year, so far, either already closed or due to close by kind of July time will be 98 Barclays branches. And it's been pretty cheeky, I think, the way they do this. They release them every couple of weeks, a couple here or there, maybe thinking it will go under the radar. But in total, 98 is a massive number of them to go. And there were more than that, almost a couple of hundred that went last year in 2022 and before that and before that and before that. So if you are a Barclays customer who does need access to a branch, you can obviously go to your post office, if you've got a post office, for some of your banking. I would suggest, though, maybe you look at, if you have got another bank in your area, just open an account with them. I think it's useful to have an account where you have access to a branch. You never know what might happen. Doesn't mean you have to switch, doesn't mean you have to close your Barclays account. There are reasons to stick with them, such as that 5.12% pay-in savings account on up to £5,000. But obviously, if you're not fussed about that and you just want to move all your banking, then switch over and maybe try and combine a switching bonus with a branch. And one of the reasons why I say it's useful to have a branch near you is something that's happened a couple of times, once last week and other times earlier in the month. And this is downtime on banking apps. Now, we had this on Friday, the 28th of April, so just before this long weekend. For most people, that's going to be payday, or for a lot of people, it's payday. And from about 7 in the morning to about 2 in the afternoon, the Halifax, Lloyds and TSB apps were not accessible for some customers. It may have been that you couldn't get in for the whole period. It may have been you could not get in for some of that time. It seemed to affect people differently. But again, a good reason to remember that if you have all your money in a single account and you only have access to it via the app, then that can be a problem. Now, in this instance, you probably could have got in touch with them on the phone and on phone banking, or go to the branch. But I still think it's a good idea to try and have more than one current account for many reasons, but this is one, and to make sure that you have money accessible in more than one of those accounts as well. So spread that around. And ideally, I guess if you're chasing the best rate for your savings, they're likely to be in a completely separate third party as well. And again, you can split those around, but as long as you can access them, that will be great. There was also another big downtime for cooperative customers at the start of last month. In fact, for numerous days, multiple days, over weekends, like 2 or 3 days over weekends, a couple of times the co-op banking system was down, the online and app banking, which is not great at all. So again, it's not a great app anyway. If you are looking to move away, and I think a lot of people did, it's a good reason maybe to ditch a particular bank for all those problems. Hopefully they've sorted it, but it's worth letting you know about this. Now, something else to tell you about is a change that's happening with Curve. Now, Curve, I told you about last year. There were various changes that made me think, really, is it worth it anymore? Well, this latest one is like another nail in that coffin. It's not going to apply to all of you, but if you ever use Curve for business payments, so this is where you might pay with your Curve card. It goes to your personal card or whatever card's linked to it, but you can change it later on. We go back in time to your business card. Or you just don't want to carry lots of cards with you. You can have them all on this single debit card. Well, from the 10th of June, 2023, so just in a month and a bit's time, there's going to be a charge of 1.5% applied to business card transactions on a personal Curve card beyond a certain free allowance. Now, I only think the Curve that's worth getting is the free one. I wouldn't pay for it, although you get things like insurance and stuff with the other tiers. Don't think it's worth it. Check out my review last year for more details. But the Curve free card, they only get £100 you can spend every single month before that 1.5% is added to business transactions on business cards. What I'm going to do now, it probably means I would take my Curve card out of my wallet. There's no point having it. On my phone now, I can have my business card. I can have all my loads of my different debit cards. There's no real benefit other than a great backup for spending overseas. And I did do a video just last week. If you didn't watch it, do check it out up here. I'll link to it here on the best debit and credit cards for your spending overseas. And a couple of quick ones for you now. If you use the budgeting app Emma to track multiple current accounts, they have now changed it to, on the free account at least, you can only add 2 different banks, just 2, that's it. Which for most people, if you're using one of these to track multiple accounts, that makes it pretty redundant. Although if you're using it more for in-depth budgeting analysis on 1 or 2 accounts, then it's definitely worth having a look, but alongside some of those others like Snoop and Money Dashboard. And finally, I spoke about these last month, but just a little reminder, because it's your last chance to take advantage of these offers if you wish. You've got until the 10th of May to request a £500 interest-free overdraft for 12 months from First Direct or HSBC. Lasts for 12 months. At the end of that year, it reverts to their normal amount. For First Direct, that's 250 quid. For HSBC, that's 25 quid. But so you've only got a week or so to request that. And also Chase, the £15 cap on cashback every single month for your first year. The deadline to get it before that comes into play for new customers is the 9th of May. So again, you've only got a few days to open up a Chase account, and then you will get unlimited cashback every single month for that first year. After that, it will be a £15 cap would be applied, and you've got to pay in £500 every month as well. But again, worth, if you haven't got one and you are going to use it for spending, jumping in before that deadline. That's it for this month. My name's Andy Webb. Thank you so much for watching. Check out these videos here for more ways to make money from your bank.